It's 2 p.m. on the East Coast, 11 a.m. in the Bay Area, and wherever you are, turn off your Slack notifications. Stop trying to figure out why your favorite team couldn't afford $2 million a year to pay Shohei Ohtani, and grab your caffeinated beverage of choice. It's time for a coffee break. I apparently need a little more. I'm your host, Alex Jonathan Brown. I'm a senior copywriter here at Iron Horse, and today we're going to look at how some of the fastest growing companies are getting ready for 2024. To help us focus in on how content plays a role in those plans, I'm joined by Barbie Maddie, VP of Growth Strategy here at Iron Horse. Hi, Barbie.
Hi.
And Christine Polovacek, Senior Vice President of Product Marketing and Research at Path Factory. Hi, everybody.
Hello, hello.
So this conversation today is kind of pegged to the Enterprises Growth Alliance's recent report. I think we can still say it's recent. It's kind of still hot off the presses about investment insights for 2024 budget planning. And Barbie, since you kind of are one of the chief architects of the report on the Iron Horse side of things, I wondered if you could just give us an overview.
Absolutely. And this is a very casual coffee break conversation with my friend Christine. So I just have this one slide. And just to level set on how this data came about, we polled 400 B2B marketing decision makers, and we asked them, what is the most important outcome you're trying to achieve with your next planned investment? So we know some direction of how we need to advise our clients to plan for 2024. And I'm a big fan of cutting the data by how quickly and how much a company is able to grow year over year revenue. And so the lens in which we did this study was for high growth B2B marketing organizations. So high growth means they grew annual revenue 11 to 40%. So sample size went from 400 down to 252, still statistically significant. Sounds like I need some coffee with you, Alex. And so what was just resounding were the results, and it was efficiency and retention essentially tied for number one. There's a one sample size difference between the two. And then expansion business, just for clarity of terminology, it's selling more to an existing buyer through upsell, or selling more to a new buyer within an existing account through cross-sell. And so then once we kind of boiled it down even further, we said, okay, your three most important outcomes are efficiency, retention, and expansion. And then we broke it down into what are the people, the ABM and demand programs, and the technology that you need in order to support one, two, all three of those growth goals. And what was so interesting to me is the ponderance of the word content on this screen. And so same slide, just pointing out everywhere that content is referenced in our results. And of course, my first thought was to reach out to my friend and former colleague, Christine, to get her expert opinion on why. I have my speculations and my guesses, but I really wanted to ask our subject matter expert in the space, Christine, on why is content appearing across all of these outcomes, and why is it appearing as far as the people, programs, and technology that are needed.
Yeah. Thanks, Barbie, first for having me, and thanks everyone who's joined us today. For those of you who don't know, one of the reasons Barbie asked me is because I used to lead the B2B content strategy and operations research practice at Serious Decisions and Forrester, and Barbie and I worked together there. So I've been looking at content's role in revenue for a really long time and have a lot of passionate opinions about it. I think for probably a decade now, I've been using this terminology of content engine transformation or content transformation as being critical to digital transformation. But I think it really came to light for folks who maybe hadn't realized how immature the content aspects of their overall rev tech and people process tech data, et cetera, were until COVID. And then it was like, oh, shoot. Now I really have to be digitally savvy because everything's digital. And guess what? Digital is fueled by content, and content is data. And I don't know anything about my content as data. I actually can't capture that with my current technology. Also, from an efficiency perspective, I mean, things have just gotten more complex, especially you go enterprise, right? And it's just like the matrices of complexity just grow exponentially. So you need content related technology that's going to help you do things more seamlessly with better automation, leveraging AI where you can. What I found interesting about your study here, though, Barbie, was that not only does content show up nearly everywhere, but even the things that aren't specifically content have content specific elements. There isn't anything on this slide that doesn't have a dependency on rethinking where content plays a role in some way, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, from the analytics perspective, I've been talking about the need for content operations as part of marketing operations forever. And I think, I've been saying content is data and creates data when it's interacted with. And for a lot of organizations right now, that content data is a black hole. It's like the missing link in their CX data models. They don't understand and can't track all of the content interactions as touch points across the CX lifecycle to truly be able to optimize it, to truly be able to personalize it and accelerate buyer journeys and customer needs as part of that.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point. And thank you for reminding me about the bottom swim lane around technology. I wanted to make sure that it was very clear that content marketing was just the umbrella term that we used in our survey, but we expanded on the definition of that and we cited specific tools, Path Factory being one of them. And so I think, Christine, you wanted to talk about how it's not necessarily content marketing, but how the data, the operations, et cetera, all tie into content intelligence.
Well, I mean, at Path Factory, we talk about and have what we call a content intelligence solution, which I define as a solution that is the intersection of data, content, and AI, and automation as part of that as well, to optimize experiences and accelerate revenue growth. But and that's where I think that a lot of the focus needs to be. But in reality, to be fair, if you use the term content marketing, I consider it an umbrella term that can mean a lot of different things and can solve for a lot of different things. So you have vendors who could be called content marketing vendors who are really more like workflow and project management focused, right? They're in that efficiency bucket. They're trying to help make sure you go through the right workflow steps, compliance and approval process, and do that in the most efficient, scalable way possible across teams. And it's really more about efficiency and volume of assets produced and things like that. But then you also, so actually, let me back up. When I think about content, I talk about the 5 Ps: planning, production, promotion, and performance management, which is really that content ops stuff, right? The tech, the metadata taxonomy, your asset management, et cetera. And then the 5th P is the preparedness, the org design, the skills, the alignment across teams, communication. So when someone says, I want to drive efficiency, retention, or expansion using content marketing solutions, I want to know which of those Ps are you trying to fix or connect, and in what way? Because that's going to kind of just steer you from a category perspective where you want to go. Like, I really need to fix the planning and production element. You're probably going to go into more of like a workflow or MRM or some sort of tool like that, right? Yeah. I'm trying to fix promotion and maximizing paid and organic activation and filling pipeline, et cetera. You're going to be focused on something more like a Path Factory, right? Like content intelligence, and that fills in that performance management piece too.
I love how you're starting with a business requirement, yes, and then proposing the solution rather than just saying, oh, we need this tool. Well, okay, what problem are you trying to solve? What's the business behind it? What outcomes are you expecting? I really like that lens and description.
I mean, we talked about that a lot, right? At Serious and Force, where we'd say capabilities before categories, right?
Yep.
Like, what do I actually need? And because content marketing is such a big bucket of stuff, and also there's content related aspects in pretty much everything these days, right? Like, there is no one solution. You're going to need multiple tools in your stack to support what you need to do with content and to support your audiences with that content. So I do think it comes back to use cases. And I think you have to assess, if I looked across my 5 Ps in my content engine, whether it's marketing or you want to look across the whole CX or Rev Tech, Rev engine, where would I rate our maturity? Are we beginner? Are we intermediate? Are we more advanced in these areas? And that might help you kind of steer towards where you have the most painful gaps to fill. The other thing, in the current economic environment we're in, I certainly think it's an easier sell to get in something like a content intelligence solution, because you can, like, we have metrics in our system that tie directly back to content attribution to pipeline revenue, opportunities, new accounts engaged. Like, it's a hard sell right now for marketers to even get approval to buy new tech, right? Because of the economy. So you want to make sure whatever investments you're making in, one, you can tie very specifically back to a use case, what teams can use it, when you can see impact on the business, and be able to prove that with data, right? So I think it is a little bit harder if you're saying, I want to bring in a solution that's going to help us scale how fast we can create new copy and assets. That's awesome. I totally support that as a goal, because it's so time consuming to create high quality content. But can you prove that's actually going to come back and tie back to the bottom line? And how long will it take you to do that? I worry you might get stuck in some extended buying committee red tape if you don't have a business case that ties back to revenue, and you can prove that once the tool is implemented.
Yeah. Well, that's funny too, because I was having, sorry, Alex, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say another thing, and I don't want to interrupt too much, but that's also a really great time to look at the stack that you currently have and make sure that it hasn't added features, added things that let you get started in this process and build out that business case. Also from a, hey, we're doing this and we're just at the edge of the tools we currently have. Because there's a lot of like shelfware, like we see it often with clients. And doing that as part of that kind of inventory, basically, of where you're at can be really helpful.
Technology audit and I think like the words audit and inventory should be applied to pretty much every aspect of what we do. Do you even know what you have, and do you even know how you're using it today?
Yep. Agreed. Well, I think that's kind of funny too, because I was having a conversation with another colleague of mine, and I was kind of being tongue in cheek, like we were trying to come up with kind of the theme for another podcast that I did. And I just said, content's the new ABM. And he loved that. And I was like, now that you think about it, like timing wise, historically, ABM's been around for a while. It's really starting to gain traction. People are starting to invest in it. You're having teams and resources dedicated to it. And then now content's kind of the same thing. So I feel like if I'm looking at what you just said on a timeline, Christine, I feel like with the economy statement as well, we're thinking like, hey, let's make 2024 the year that we gather and prove and show value in content. So we're teed up to have content be the new ABM for 2025, hopefully sooner.
I mean, from a trend perspective, I agree with that statement, right? Like ABM had this like grassroots groundswell, and then it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And now it's considered kind of table stakes as a discipline and something that you do as part of your overall marketing and rev tech and your rev engine, not just tech. I agree with that. And I mean, back after Forrester B2B Summit in Austin this past May, where George Colony from Forrester was saying, you can't wait to explore AI, like generative AI, which to me is a type of content AI, essentially. I said, this is the year of the content AI clarion call. Like, we are all being called to figure out what our plan is and get one in motion, because I guarantee the majority of B2B orgs, and I know this because I used to do the state of B2B content study multiple times over the years as market research, know that most organizations are beginner or intermediate in their content engine capabilities. And it's always been the last. Like, it's, no, we're investing in marketing automation first. No, we're getting ABM intent provider. Now we're getting this, sales enablement tool. And it's always the content, to me, felt like it was being under invested with people programs and tech, to the point of your slide. And now people are realizing, oh, I don't have content ops. I have horrible metadata and taxonomy. I don't actually know how my content is contributing to revenue and don't feel real confident in those numbers. And that has to change. Like, there's no way around it. And now we have to train AI models with our content.
Right. I know. I feel like you're suggesting like content has its own swim lane in this report when we do it for next year.
It very well, I mean, that's the thing, right? It literally touches everything. So you can't get around it, and you can't actually fuel digital experiences without it. And another important point, I don't know if we talked about this before, but I mean, I certainly talk about it a lot, is that first part content interactions with content is first party buying signal data or CX signal data, right? So when you see on here intent monitoring and intent data, first party data is the new data. Like, that is the most important data that you can get. I mean, yes, you should correlate it with third party data. Yes, you should correlate it with what's in your CRM and your map and all of those, which I consider zero party data. But a lot of folks haven't figured out this like intent modeling with the content strategy, first party data piece in it. And that's really the next frontier.
Yep. Agreed. Totally agree.
What else?
It's interesting that you brought up AI. So I was just going to circle back to your comment about AI.
Yeah.
It's funny that you brought that up, because as part of this report, I wrote a couple of blogs, and one of them I was curious because AI is very on trend these days. So I went to ChatGTP and I was like, gee, how can AI help with efficiency, retention, and expansion? And content was in most of the answers. Exactly. So, for example, for the efficiency piece, the number one way that ChatGPT said that AI can help is through personalization. So personalization at scale, relevant content, and expansion business by doing highly targeted offers. So what are your thoughts on that?
I completely agree. I mean, we've been talking about AI. Thank you for setting me up so well, Barbie. No, I mean, that's so.
Like we rehearsed this.
No, we actually didn't, but that was fantastic. That is exactly why I'm at Path Factory, because we talk about AI powered personalization through better content journeys, right? So, we have AI website personalization. We have AI ML recommended content playlists that are based on what we know about you from third party intent data, plus what's in your map and CRM, plus the interactions you've had with content previously on other visits, right? So the personalization piece is, I don't see any other way to actually scale personalization, whether it's one-to-one, one-to-few, like more ABM, right? Or one-to-many, kind of top of funnel stuff, without the use of content AI to do that. Like, that's really where the personalization capabilities are going to come in for most organizations.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth shouting out, and I don't want to turn this into too much of a plug for Path Factory, but just so everybody's listening, as a person who spends a lot of time in ChatGPT and other similar software, we're not saying go ask literally ChatGPT to like do all the things Christine just talked about for you.
No,
right?
that is not. Like, yes,
that's 0% what we're saying.
Thank you for shutting that down.
And
yeah, exactly. Go ahead.
The work of getting AI to a place where it can do that effectively is this whole new emerging genre of how we do kind of this marketing work. And it's really specific and it takes a lot of time. And so I just want to kind of level set expectations of
Yes.
if you like, it worked great for Barbie's blog.
Because that was the point.
Exactly. I have opinions on it about copywriting in general. But really, when we're talking about AI on the level that Christine's talking about it, it is a different beast in so many ways that just happens to leverage some of the same tech.
It's a lot easier to use. I mean, it is a lot to think about, but it's actually pretty easy to use. What I like to tell people is you need to think about AI in a couple of different categories. There's generative AI, which everyone's talking about because OpenAI released ChatGPT back in November of 2022. It's been just over a year. And the world just, it took the world by storm. And as it should, it's really exciting what the longer term potential is there. But do not put anything proprietary for yourself or your customers in an open, public-facing ChatGPT interface. There are compliance, regulatory, IP protection-related issues that you need to think about. Is it a good idea starter? Can it get you to 60, 70%, just like machine translation did for translation and localization companies? Sure, but you still need a human in the loop, right? But there's also classic AI, which has been around for a long time, which is more of a rules-based pattern recognition algorithms that are self-learning, that are usually focused on very specific tasks like auto tagging assets or workflow automation or auto generation of there's analytics dashboards based on rules or something like that. But there's classic AI and generative AI, and both are needed in our stacks. Both are needed from a content tech perspective, and they have different types of purposes. Generative AI is, I'm going to create something net new using unstructured content, and I'm just going to go in and create a new set of copy, a new idea, a new code snippet, right? But it's net new and novel every time. Even if you go back and ask the same question, it's probably going to give you a slight variation on your previous answer. Whereas rules-based is self-learning on how to hone a specific task over and over again to make it better and better.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was long.
No. I totally agree with everything that you just said. And to add to that, I would say that you actually must have that human intervention, so to speak, because and one of the reasons this slide is highlighted for the program thing, it's because you have to have a more connected buyer's journey. And I don't think without human light to that, I don't think that's achievable without it. So, I mean, I would love to hear your perspective on that.
I don't think, especially on the generative AI side, that for most of the use cases, you can just like plug and play and take humans out of the mix. I think it's really an efficiency play for now. I'll be curious to see over the next couple of years how they tie it back to revenue impact, but I don't think we're there yet. I do think it's like, hey, a sales rep can write an email that much faster, or, can do some percentage of your BDR outreach in an automated way, so on and so forth. But I don't think we're at this kind of like threshold of quality and maturity yet, and probably won't be till closer to the end of next year or the following year, where I feel like I'll personally have enough input to feel, how do I feel about that, right? And where the innovation is going. We're actually taking a very different approach where we're building our generative AI innovation that's coming out next year on private large language models that we're training on our customers' already approved content. But even that is something that we're honing and refining, and takes work to figure out what the secret sauce is there, right? So I just think that companies should absolutely be exploring generative AI, but also need to look at where what I'll call classic or traditional AI already exists as capabilities in current software, or needs to be introduced to improve journeys, improve measurement, improve experiences. So again, I feel like I was so glad when generative AI hit the scene like this, because I knew it was going to draw attention to AI overall, which I thought was way overdue, frankly. So that's why I'm excited about it. But I trust classic AI solutions more right now because they've been in the market longer. They're road tested. You can actually figure out how they impact the business. Whereas generative AI, I feel like we are still in experimental stage. Do you agree?
Well, maybe AI is the new ABM instead of content.
No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know. I like content as the new ABM.
I like both, but I do think that AI is here. It's here to stay. It's going to change all of our lives in a very meaningful way over the rest of this decade.
I think one thing that kind of ties those two ideas together too, and Christine, what you were saying about generative AI specifically, is that when this took off and when this became such a big part of the conversation, whether we're talking about copy or code snippets or whatever, was when we made that tie from AI to content, basically.
Right.
Like it was when it got to a point where anybody in your org could see, it just wrote me an email really fast and much faster than if I have, a junior copywriter somewhere take a crack at it. So I think even as it expands and goes into all these different, and I think frankly more interesting spaces, like ultimately the magic of it for so many people is I was staring at a blank cursor and now I'm 75% of the way through the thing I was trying to write.
Totally.
And so I think that it's not like a direct one-to-one, but I think the tie between AI and content is pretty strong across the board.
Absolutely. But I can't emphasize enough that it's really about the intersection of data, content, and AI. That is most important to me anyway.
Yeah. They're no longer highlighted anymore, but ops and data and analytics were the other two people that resoundingly across the survey came out as the top three options. But yeah, you're absolutely right. You can't do one without the other two. It's
Can I just
starting a fire.
Yeah. Can I make one more comment? So the other thing about that data piece is that when we say content intelligence, because most people don't know what happens after the click, right? Like I've downloaded a form. I filled out your form. It's gone into MAP. It was a white paper. So 10 points for me. I'm almost at my lead scoring threshold. I did nothing with that white paper. I read it for 1 second, but somehow that just pushed me over a lead threshold. And now I've got a BDR reaching out to me. No, that is an outdated lead scoring model. If you don't understand how they consume the content, what the content was about, how long they spent with it, who they shared it with, all of those things, then you don't have content intelligence.
Yeah. So, I totally agree. And then tying it back to the data, you have to differentiate those between somebody that's new to your company and doesn't know who you are versus somebody who's purchased from you. Those are two totally different experiences and metrics and you name it.
Like a great example that we kind of toss around internally is the experience of having like one person go through and within a week download like 75% of everything you've done and like fill out all those forms. And Christine, what you were saying, that old model is this is the hottest lead we'd ever had. Like everyone, like let's send 6 salespeople to go talk to this person.
Yeah.
And we're getting
They've
to the space now
and it's a student at a university working on their PhD.
Exactly. It's a student or an intern who's just been told to go grab everything and we'll try to steal it later. Yeah. And it's like, it's figuring out the difference between those two things is really where so much of this is moving. And it's super interesting and like, I think really inspiring to see companies get smarter about this. But we're also at the phase where like, as more and more people learn that, if you're the org that's having your sales rep reach out, an hour after that first download, the person that they're reaching out to starts to realize like, this is very aggressive in a way that I'm not seeing from other people. And really getting that intelligence in a way that supports the whole org and not just what my goals might be as a marketer of like, yeah, it's an MQL. Let's get it off to sales and I'm done. Really starts to be
that whole MQL model has to change.
I mean, it's a different webinar. I got us a little distracted.
A cocktail hour conversation.
We are coming close to time though, and I want to give people like something hopefully super useful tactically to leave on. So we've got the whole report, which you can check out on the Enterprise Growth Alliance's website if you haven't read it yet, is about looking at how these high growth companies are planning on spending their budget in 2024. We talked a lot about content today. We got into some AI stuff. And we've also talked about doing those audits and that kind of internal introspective look to see kind of really have an honest conversation about where your company's at. Heading into the new year, for both of you, where should companies like start if they're looking at this and they're like, yeah, I want to invest like those high growth companies did and are planning on doing, and maybe get some of that growth for myself? Where's a good starting point on that journey?
Do you want me to
Just
go
a small
first?
question. No big deal.
Go first.
You,
You go first.
Okay. Well, I mean, obviously you want to start at the highest level and just know the answer to the question of how does the company plan to grow? And then everything should hinge off of the answer to that one question. I hate to oversimplify things, but it's really simple. It's just, how do we plan to grow? Everybody aligned to that one answer. And there's a bunch of research out there on the different ways you can grow. Another thing I would probably recommend is there is a maturity assessment on ironhorse.io that gets into the maturity of planning for your campaigns and your content. That's a good start to just see where you fall on the spectrum, but always know how the company plans to grow. And then in theory, obviously it's a lot easier to say than do, but you should be able to align your org, your comp structure, your reporting, your tech stack. All of that should be revolved around that answer to that one question.
Mm-hmm.
Todd threw the link to that maturity assessment in the chat.
Thank you, Todd.
So there you go. Sorry, Christine, didn't mean to interrupt.
No worries. I agree with everything Barbie just said. I think, aligning back to goals is always the first thing that we should be doing. I do think overall that, and I hope a lot of organizations are already doing this because AI is kind of forcing it. The conversation is just looking at content engine maturity and saying, how are we going to level up this coming year? And it's okay if it's not what it looks like for some other org that's more mature than you, right? Like their milestones are going to be here, yours might be here, but just like, even if I said across those planning, production, promotion, performance management, that operations piece, what's one thing you could do better in each of those areas in this coming year? Like pick something, like go for it, right? And I know it will sound self-serving, but of course I'm focused on, again, that promotion element, because everything that we do to activate our content is really where the rubber meets the road, right? Like, so we've done all this planning, we produced all this content. We used to see consistently at Serious Decisions and Forrester in the State of B2B Content Studies that anywhere from 65 to 77% of marketers said that they were reporting severe content waste. That 65 to 77% of their content, sorry, I said that the wrong way at first. 65 to 77% of their content was not being engaged with by the intended audiences. So they were counting that as content waste. We need to do a better job of right audience, right content, right place, right time. We can only do that when we start thinking about our content as data, so that we can activate it through AI automation and use personalization capabilities to do that. So for me, that's content intelligence is the focus, not intent, data, but intelligence. How do I activate my insights to create better experiences and better outcomes for my business? And I think that's a good way to end that. That's a good note.
Perfect.
Do you agree, Alex? Is that what you were looking for?
That is incredible. And again, I think you also had a assessment you wanted us to possibly link to?
So I asked Todd on the Iron Horse team just to pop into chat. I emailed it to you, Todd, if you didn't find it. The content intelligence report that I published earlier this year, where I looked at our first party data in the Path Factory platform from over 1.3 million accounts. We used 6 cents to verify all the account IDs. So even if it was anonymous activity happening, known or anonymous, if we could tie it back to accounts, we analyze that data to understand what's happening from a buying behavior perspective. And what we're seeing is that people want to stay self-service longer and longer in their journeys. No surprise, I'm not the only one saying that. And content is what fuels those self-service journeys, but they're also staying anonymous for longer and longer and longer in their journeys. I mean, we have data to capture them as anonymous user profiles and to account, but until they eventually convert, they're just hidden intent within accounts. And if you're on a traditional MQL model, no one's looking at that data, right? And that's why I was saying that you have to start thinking about content data as intelligence and use that to fuel your go-to-market strategy.
I love that.
Absolutely. And you tied it up all real nice with a bow. We're a little over time. So I'll
sorry.
if nobody has anything else. No, you're great. You nailed it. Christine, Barbie, thank you so much for joining and walking us through the report and the ramifications of it a little bit. If you're watching and you haven't had a chance, like I said, you can check out the Enterprise Growth Alliance's website. It'll be on there. But if people want to learn more about you, Christine, where's a good place for them to dig in and learn a little more?
Well, thank you first of all, for having me. Thank you also for being patient with my overabundance of comments that brought us over time. Please connect with me on LinkedIn if you want to talk more or have any questions once you read that report. And, just thank you guys for having me on. This has been fun.
And Barbie, what about you?
Oh, LinkedIn is fine. It's just LinkedIn is a perfect medium for me as well.
One of these days, somebody's going to have some wild plug that I wasn't expecting, but we're business people, so it is usually LinkedIn.
I mean, I could say carrier pigeon.
I feel like I should
have a raven.
I feel like I should have some cool side hustle work. And check out my gardening website on blah blah blah.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm very popular on Etsy. Thank you again, everyone watching, for joining us. It's almost the end of the year, y'all. I was going to say see you next month, but I can say see you next year. To learn more about Iron Horse and everything we're doing, the website is ironhorse.io. We're very up to date on there. Barbie's blog about AI is up. We've got a lot going on. But until we do this again next year, coffee break's over. Let's get back to work. Bye, everybody.
Thank you, Christine. It was awesome.
Thank you.